To preface, as it seems people don't realise, Deadlock is an alpha. Heavily developmental and totally subject to change alpha. Things I say in this video could be redundant in a month, but that's a massive benefit, because seeing this game grow and adapt has been a blast. Valve's newest game, and one of the most open secrets that can finally be talked about, a 6v6 hero shooter MOBA, trying to bridge the gap between two genres and evolve them further, and even in its early and rapid developmental stage. I believe it's successful and has a bright and promising future. After being two different games with completely different art styles, being Citadel and then Neon Prime, Valve has allowed discussion of Deadlock, set vaguely in the 1900s with a heavy occult theme taking place in the Cursed Apple, which is just basically the afterlife. Every hero has either done something wrong or has something they still need to do before they can rest peacefully. There are smatterings of lore here and there, but it's still too early to go into depth about the world. It would be really easy to say that Deadlock is Dota 2 but as a third-person shooter. And to a degree, it is. But really, the changes to core MOBA fundamentals go far deeper than surface level. Starting with it being 6v6 instead of the typical 5v5 means that there are 4 lanes instead of 3. And with the game only recently being allowed to be talked about in public, this means that discussions around metas and metagaming that have been so prevalent in modern gaming hasn't really happened yet. There's no etiquette set up. So will the typical creep farming jungler role exist? Well, by the looks of it, not really, but we don't know yet because everything is still up in the air and the community is finding its footing and exploring the mechanics. The basic gist of the game is that you last hit minions in lane, fight the other players, and try to push through their towers, and then kill their patron base guardian, and the game is won. Generally, simple in concept, but the minutiae in Deadlock and MOBAs in general don't appear in your first couple of games. There are so many little things you can do in terms of map control, buff management, and side objectives. The basic setup is that there are 2 duo lanes and 2 solo lanes, with the optimal setup being having both duo lanes in the center of the map, so that you have more roaming potential and easier access to help the side lanes. And whilst there are characters that have more of a support or tanky archetype, Valve has put in a lot of work to ensure that all characters can hold their own on a lane. And as such, the forced role pick metas from other games isn't a thing. Everyone is an AD carry to a degree, because they all have ranged guns. But some guns are better than others, and some people rely on their abilities more than their guns. I'll use my main man Lash as an example. Whilst his gun is great for poking, being a decently fast 3-round burst, his strength is in his ability damage. That being a stomping attack, a grappling hook move, and a lifesteal whip. Getting headshots with your gun to chip enemies down is important, but the pace is decided when you can successfully use his grapple to leap to an enemy, hit them with a stomp, and then finish them off with a quick melee or lifesteal whip. Tempo and pacing plays a big factor into laning. Last hitting minions in League of Legends is as simple as clicking on them when they're low, but in Deadlock, that's half the battle. After they die, you'll get half their souls, and they'll release a soul orb into the air. After a second or two, it'll pop and you'll get the other half of the souls. But this creates one of the biggest skill disparities I've seen so far: denying. If an enemy shoots your orb, they get that half of the souls instead. Laning against someone who is skilled in denying is so fucking annoying. And if you want to stay afloat in the currency war, you gotta confirm your own and deny theirs. This battle also has another layer: meleeing. Every hero can punch stuff. A light punch, or a charged heavy that does more damage. Both punches, when used on a creep that's low, will automatically capture its souls, not giving the enemy a chance to deny them. But by going into melee range, you can leave the cover that's so valuable for safe farming. This amps up the risk and reward. Do you melee to confirm souls but leave yourself open to poke, or trust in your ability to shoot the soul orbs before your enemy does? My focus on discussing souls is just as important as the game makes farming them. Kills are worth far less souls than you would think, and I've had so many games where me and my team are down on kills but up on souls, because we've been farming and rotating to make sure we have the economic advantage. I feel like this game has way more comeback moments compared to other MOBAs that I've played, because the ability to recover financially is so linked to minion farming and side objectives, like the soul jar. Around the 10-minute mark it spawns, and then you have to take it from one side of the map to the other. But whoever picks up the soul jar can't use their guns or abilities whilst holding it. You can get a lot of currency for your team this way, but with the risk of being a sitting duck if your pathing sucks. And on that note, learning the map is just as important as other MOBAs. There's so many flank routes and angles you can take. There are one-sided fog of war doors that allow the defender to see through them whilst the attackers can't. There's huge verticality with the jump pads, balconies and roof spots that change what angles you can attack and be attacked from. And because this game is still so heavily in development, the mobility changes all the time. Last week they replaced most of the bounce pads with ropes to climb up and made more roofs open and accessible. There is a lot changing all the time in Deadlock, so you should keep in mind that nothing I'm telling you is final. They combine the map verticality with really cool lane traversal. Since there's no recall button to teleport back to base, instead you come in on rails that grow and shrink based off minion pressure. If your minions are pushed up to the enemy's tower, you can ride the rail further into the lane. But if they're pushed up to your tower, your ride will be shorter and you'll have to walk the rest of the way there yourself. Movement is huge in Deadlock, either from tactical positioning, rotation, and smart rail usage, but especially with the dashes you have. You can roll on the ground, dash in the air, and double jump too, but these maneuvers cost stamina bars that are represented in the middle of the screen. Stamina management is incredibly important. Some heroes have a low base and some have a high base. You can build items that give you more stamina or affect your movement speed, but understanding the movement and flow of your character is a priority. The bullshit that I can pull off with Lash is halved if I don't have as many dashes as I do. Using my dashes to chase an enemy, or using it to escape a close conflict, you do not want to be caught with no stamina and your pants by your ankles. And this doesn't even factor in the sliding tech that separates an average player from a great one. Either when going downstairs or after a dash, you can slide. During that slide, you get unlimited ammo. Slides aren't super long, basically a second or two, but being able to eke out free damage to avoid the long reload times is another layer of skill and mastery this game has. Itemization for hero and playstyle is once again so important. And the great thing I can report is that there isn't just cookie cutter builds for heroes. There are must-buy items for specific heroes to get the most oomph out of them, but you can focus on a hero's guns, abilities, or both, as well as a focus on burst or damage over time additions. As an example, I recently tried this build someone put up on the community browser for Infernus. And as a side note, having community build guides in the game is amazing. And a good guide's item descriptions and recommendations really go a long way in helping a new player learn. But this Infernus guide didn't focus on bursting a solo target. It's got ricochet rounds as its core, meaning bullets bounce to other targets, but also apply status effects to them. With Infernus having a damage over time as his passive for the whole game, you can stack it so easy. But then, this guide gets you to build an item that shreds ability resist on enemies that stacks, and then a second one that shreds gun resist, with items that then boost magazine size and rate of fire on top. When the build starts to come together, holy fuck. Whole waves of minions gone in moments. If the enemy team makes the mistake of grouping up where they can't see you, you end up debuffing the entire team in half a clip, and you can just watch their health drain. But then, you get one of the multiple items that means ability damage heals you. And suddenly your multiple damage over time abilities are bringing you up to full health in the blink of an eye. It's really fun the way that characters can be built into multiple playstyles and roles. And the fact that there aren't dedicated tank and support roles means that everyone gets access to being a carry. Every single character can pop off, and you aren't punished like if you're supporting a traditional MOBA kit taking your kills. The itemization is much closer to Dota 2 than to League, because frankly, the endgame items get nutty. Giant bonuses to damage, lifesteal, active items that reflect 70% of the damage back to them, a magic carpet that lets you traverse the map really fast. It's all really cool, but because the game and subsequent players are so new, it can be hard to understand and get into, knowing what to build and when, what is good for one style or another. As mentioned, the community created build guides are great. Even if the items specifically aren't great choices if the build is outdated, it gives new players an understanding of what kind of archetype they're building for. And once they know how a hero feels with that build, they can then trade out items themselves and learn what works and doesn't for their playstyle. There are 16 heroes at the time of writing, all with unique visual and gameplay identities. I mean, just look at Viscous. They're immediately identifiable at just a glance. And the same goes for their abilities. Everyone loves the cube. The cube is safe. The cube is home. The cube loves you? So I need to snap out of it. Sorry about that. Gotta stop listening to the gelatinous voices in my head. Some of my favourites are Pocket, an edgy boy with a briefcase full of secrets. They can go assassin or light bruiser. They've got great mobility and a panic immunity button, meaning that you can save yourself from death if you play smart. Or Infernus, a dude on fire with the coolest guns in the game. His fingers, and is just as likely to run it down in int as he is to burn it up and become a killing machine. He's really great fun once you get his flow. Kelvin is a great support character, but when built correctly, can totally hold their own. But the funnest part of their kit is when they just turn into fucking Frozone and start skating around the map. Buildings and verticality be damned. I'm just gonna skate over the skyline. Top tier movement combined with the slowing effects means that you can terrorize people with a 60% movement slow, so they cannot escape. And finally, we have Lash. my favorite of them all. A stomping bruiser with so much movement and verticality, you might just get motion sick. He is so much fun to play when you figure him out. Once again, I've become a one-trick. I enjoy the other heroes, but he's my highest priority pick in the menu. I love a strong laner with a heavy ego. It's the same reason that Draven was my main when I played League. The heroes all have diverse visual identities and gameplay experiences. I think Valve knocked it out the park with this, and with more heroes being worked on in the background, including 3 that seem almost ready to release, the game has a bright future in my opinion. I've been playing basically every day when I get home from work. Sadly though, the playtests have an 11-hour window daily where you can play before that region's servers get closed. But you know, say if I tripped and accidentally hit F7, and then I kinda, slipped onto my keyboard and typed what was on screen, followed up by 0 to 5. I could just accidentally go to another region to keep playing past the test closing. The issues that I've experienced right now are basically just community based. Aside from one issue where FPS dips as the game goes on, my main complaint is that there are so many people leaving after 5 minutes, if they lose their lane, or if they apparently just can't be fucked playing that match anymore. I know that crashes are also going to be a part of this issue, but the amount of times I've had 5v6 games is absurd. But one really cool thing is, we've actually won a bunch of them by playing smarter. It doesn't give people the pass though. You're an adult, play the fucking game you signed up to and eat your fucking vegetables. You have toxicity and hate speech being rampant because people don't think reports get enforced. Every time I load into a lobby, I type in all chat, "What's up gamers?" 70% of the time, no one says anything. 20% of the time, I get called the hard R or another slur, and 10% of the time is people actually talking and joking back. So if you see a lash in your lobby saying "What's up gamers?" it's probably me, so please be nice, otherwise I just might cry. If anyone watching doesn't have access yet that wants in, leave your Steam friend code and I'll add you when I can. I need more new players in this game that haven't learned how to counter lash so I can get my free win and ego boost. For now though, that's all from me. I'll catch you in the afterlife. Thank you for watching.